This evening, let's explore the 7 Enlightenment Factors and then meditate. Whoopsie. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. This is the Lama you are looking for. This evening, we could chant and meditate and enjoy a lesson or two. But first, if you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as Obi-Wan Kenobi upon the toasty sands of Tatooine under the guidance of Qui-Gon Jinn, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. If at any point during this evening's live stream you have a question about Buddhist meditation, or Buddhist philosophy, or about the particulars of how to apply them to the details of your life, do not be bashful. Strike while the iron is hot, and type your questions in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Caution, if you wait till the end of the lesson, my brains will have turned to oatmeal and I will be worthless to you. So, as soon as the collective unconscious taps you upon the shoulder and gives you a question, run with it. Like Charlie Brown with a kite. One of the most frequently translated scriptures from the Pali Canon is the Anapanasati Sutta. In it, one can read of the 7 Enlightenment Factors. The first one is mindfulness, and if you've tuned in before, there's going to be some review here that can't be helped. Now, many contemporary teachers confuse concentration and mindfulness, and that's just unfortunate. Concentration is an act of rigidity, of saying I'm going to focus on this and everything else can fuck all the way off. That is the rigidity of concentration. Mindfulness is its groovy twin sibling. Mindfulness is like, it notices, but how does it notice? Vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. It can notice things like emotion, intention, thought, memory, and imagination. It could perceive such things as sights, scents, sounds, flavors, sensations, and the like. Sometimes those perceptions or in the background, sometimes in the foreground. They are not fought. They are enjoyed passively. Consider, if you will, that you and I were in a theater, and we had the good sense to recognize that neither of us were the playwright, nor the director, nor the producer, nor even the thespian upon a stage, but really we're just the patron. We're just one of the members of the audience, sitting back, sucking on a hard candy, and enjoying the show. Similarly, just like the Federation and the Star Trek, the original series, we have a non-interference clause. We do not interfere with the present moment experience. We just enjoy it vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, not even bothering to label the experience. Now, when I was a little boy, homesick from school, which was pretty much my mode of operandi, I saw an episode, not of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. This was, of course, a rerun, but of Boris Karloff Presents, which was much more frightening. And in this one particular episode, a man poking around the attic of a great late uncle whose estate he just inherited found a journal in a box. And in the journal, it described that an alchemist from the late 1700s stumbled upon a special grind for spectacles that would allow one to read minds. And so the guy puts the spectacle on and is able to read the minds of the people in his life, his attorney, his fiancée, and the like. And it's pretty disturbing stuff he perceives. But then he returns to the attic, returns to the journal, and reads that the use of the glasses is to be the glasses are to be used in cooperation with the mirror so that the wearer could really understand what's going on in his own heart. And then when the protagonist of the episode did that, he promptly went insane. Most people have a very rigid, superficial, pedantic view of themselves. And when they sit in vulnerability and at last are able to see what lies within, the full spectrum of what lies within, from the glorious to the grotesque, for most people it is unbearable. And they become very, very defensive and start telling all these stories, justifying, minimizing, and rationalizing their memories and their impulses. What is the opposite of this defensiveness? Curiosity. Persisting in vulnerability. The third and fourth enlightenment factors were quite puzzling when I first stumbled upon them so many decades ago. Being a lifelong person of poor health, as a neurodivergent with an unregulated experience of dopamine, joy and energy were always terribly elusive. And so when I read that these were not the benefits of That's better. So when I read that these were not the benefits of enlightenment, but the prerequisites of enlightenment, I was deeply disturbed. As the years wore by, it dawned on me that the marriage of energy and enthusiasm could be described as, the marriage of energy and joy could be described as enthusiasm. And although I may be sickly, I was never lacking in enthusiasm. What I also found is that when sitting in meditation, if one has a tall posture and one breathes from one's diaphragm, both energy and joy seem to bubble up apparently out of nowhere, which is inferred by Gaurav Dorje's text, The Spaciousness of Vajrasattva. We come now to another pair of attributes, tranquility and coalescence. So some people, a popular translation of coalescence would be concentration. One of my Theravadan teachers pointed out that it works contextually better as coalescence. Now, for you and I, us everyday folk, when we are sitting in a good meditation posture and we're breathing in from our diaphragm in an enthusiastic manner, it feels like not only our air but our subtle energy is coalescing. And as we exhale, we find relaxation becomes very easy and the tranquility that ensues. Now here's the really cool thing. Neuroscience tells us that every inhalation, whether we know it or not, accesses our sympathetic nervous system, which is wired to notice things, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. And that every exhalation, whether we know it or not, is wired to access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is wired for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. I love how the 7 Enlightenment Factors are in harmony with our contemporary understanding of neuroscience and how they apply to every facet of Buddhism, from Theravada to Dzogchen. I think it would be fun to chant and meditate. Before we do, let's spend but a moment on housekeeping. Every day, I live stream meditation classes, health permitting, 4 times a day. These live streams are without any advertisement or product placement. If you find value in these instructions and techniques and group practice, if you enjoy my Muppet-like enthusiasm to answer questions put to me in the Q&A windows, then allow me to remind you that with your assistance, this channel could help support the next generation of nuns, monks, yogis, lamas, and even brick-and-mortar meditation centers, each replete with a resident teacher and their apprentice. Why should you care? Well, in Tibet, nuns, monks, yogis, and lamas have a difficult time. If they or their families cannot afford for them to stay in a monastery, they become homeless. In America, homelessness is a crime. In some states, it's a felony and you can lose your ability to vote, which sucks, and not in the fun, tingly way. So it can make sense that I want to make sure the next generation have it easier. And instead of worrying about sustenance, they can just practice the path and master the path and help others do likewise. If this speaks to you, if this feels like a good idea, if you want to help out even for as little as the cost of 1 cup of coffee a month, simply use your smartphone's camera to capture this QR code, or if you're old school, simply click one of the donation links in the description area below the video. I think currently on Patreon, after all the charitable contributions, the Buddha Joy Meditation School receives about $7 a month. So, if I'm a criminal mastermind, I'm not a very smart one. Now, let's get on with the show. Or as I said in the Squire of Gothos episode of Star Trek, tally-ho. Let us begin by training the neural pathways responsible for empathy and enthusiasm through the very simple practice of chanting bodhicitta and refuge. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of aging, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. And now, I think it would be great fun if we chanted Red Pine's translation of the Heart of Wisdom Sutra. Now, this is a highly metaphoric text, so when you come across a bit that confounds you, type your question in the chat window. The Numalabo Nungirishwaro Muni Sanfa, while practicing the deep practice of Brahma Paramita. Looked upon the five skandhas and seeing they were empty of self-existence. Said Shariputra form as emptiness, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not separate from form, form is not separate from emptiness. Whatever is form is emptiness, whatever is emptiness is form. Again with the emptiness. It uses the word emptiness without defining the word emptiness, which could drive you to drink. Allow me to shed some light on it. If we view emptiness literally, we have two choices. Do we practice do we exhaust ourselves with pseudo-intellectual skullduggery, or do we drown ourselves in superstitious blind faith? I would recommend a third choice, and that is to view emptiness figuratively. So we spoke a few moments ago about how the in-breath correlates to the sympathetic nervous system and the out-breath correlates to the parasympathetic nervous system. So as we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could now begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, wait for it, as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. Now, a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. So, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could be tantalizing to the eye, is intangible to the hand? And there you go. Emptiness demystified. Cowabunga. Let's chant. The same holds for sensation and perception, memory and consciousness. Here Shariputra dharmas are defined by emptiness, not by birth or destruction, purity or defilement, completeness or deficiency. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no sensation, no perception, no memory, no consciousness. This is the beginning of 22 consecutive no's, which sounds a lot like a pop song from the 70s, but it's not. So, we're not saying things don't exist. Remember, this is figurative. So there's nothing that you can notice that we cannot release. That is the theme of the remaining 22 no's. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, and no mind. No shape, no sound, no smell, no taste, no feeling, and no thought. No element of perceptions from eye to conceptual consciousness. Some fancy pants like to describe this as the three circles of emptiness. There is the object, the means of perception let me rephrase this. There's the object of perception, from this case, a beautiful sky. The means of perception, in this case, our eyeballs. And then there is the awareness of the mind experiences, the visual awareness the mind experiences. And so basically what this is saying is no matter how you cut reality, if you treat reality like a big old pizza, you might cut it 3 ways, you might cut it 18 ways, you might cut it 12 ways, it's still the same pizza. And whatever piece of pizza we can notice, we can release, especially if it's hot. Let's continue. No causal link from consciousness to old age and death. No end of causal link from consciousness to old age and death. No suffering, no source, no relief, no path. No knowledge, no attainment, and no non-attainment. So let's explore this. Once again, this only makes sense figuratively. So, it's really easy to be goal-oriented and to consequently become really, really frustrated and say, dude, man, I want to transcend suffering by mastering the Eightfold Path. And I've been practicing, for an entire year now. And yet I don't seem to have the attainment I was told to look for. Now, there's 2 reasons here. Number one, most of us have an inaccurate view of enlightenment. Most of us think that when we're enlightened, we become like Neo, flying through the skies of the Matrix. Or like, we'll never ever experience anything untoward ever again. We'll never experience any physical pain or emotional pain or negative memory. Everything will be daffodils and puppies. But what if liberation was merely the practice of the Eightfold Path? What if enlightenment was merely the mastery of the Eightfold Path, wherein we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively? Perhaps that explains why the Buddha taught in the Anapanasati Sutta that the path could be mastered in not just 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, but even 7 days. The only prerequisite is that if someone has conditioned their body and mind to sit in meditation enjoyably, that can be done incrementally in as little as 20 weeks. So theoretically, anyone can master the Buddhist path in less than 6 months. Ugh, such a deal. Let's continue. So there you are. You received crappy instructions. You have an inaccurate view of what the goal of meditation is. You've been working really hard. You're feeling frustrated. This, sadly, is a common experience. But the author of this text is telling us, if you notice the frustration as you breathe in, you can let go of this frustration as you breathe out. Now, does that mean you won't feel frustration ever again? No lobotomies here, ladies and gentlemen. I've never seen a Buddha statue holding a hacksaw and an ice cream scoop. Please do not try to lobotomize yourself at home, no matter how many times you've watched Hannibal. What then? What's the deal? What's going on here? The cessation that the Buddha is giving us is not the cessation of the experience of frustration, but the cessation of our habit of resisting the frustration. By noticing the frustration as we breathe in and relaxing as we breathe out, although the frustration is still there, we're at peace with it, which is deliciously ironic. Let's continue. A question. I guess we'll answer it. So Ethan Martin asks, so it's more about becoming the teachings than like suddenly a gain of knowledge? Well, that's an excellent question. So there's this myth that there's a secret handshake, or if you like pop music, there's a secret chord that can make us, once again, Neo in the Matrix. But the knowledge Buddha's talking about is not a new theorem of geometry, not the secret to creating a longer lasting light bulb, although there's nothing wrong with that. The wisdom the Buddha is speaking of is the wisdom of letting go. Now, here's the great irony that the wondrous luminaries have been teaching throughout the ages. Letting go is as close as our next relaxing exhalation. It's right there. And now, does that mean the very next exhalation, you will become Neo in the Matrix? Ugh, again with Neo. No. What it means is, in every inhalation, we spontaneously are practicing mindfulness. And every exhalation, we are spontaneously practicing the wisdom of letting go. According to Gaurab Dorje and other luminaries of non-duality, we plug into enlightenment with every inhalation and exhalation. So the teachings are simple. The teachings are super simple. Let's look at the Eightfold Path. The first is the wisdom of letting go. That's what we've just described. The second fold of the Eightfold Path is wishing love. Well, the cool thing is that every healthy mammal, every one of us who has not had a debilitating brain injury or been born a psychopath, has mirror neurons. that evolved specifically for empathy. So we are already wired for empathy. Now, we're taught by anthropologists that stress undermines our ability to empathize and puts us into a hyper-competitive state. Here's the cool thing. Making the most of our inhalations and our exhalations is an antidote to that stress that makes us competitive and cruel and cunning. And within just a handful of breaths, that transmutes. You could watch it on a functional magnetic resonance imaging machine, fMRI, and you'll see the electrical activity ascend to the part of the brain, the anterior cingulate gyrus, the seat of empathy. And so with just a few rounds of mindful inhalation and meditative exhalation, we change our neural activity and instantly plug into the empathy that drives compassion and kindness and wisdom. What follows next on the Eightfold Path are the 3 Ks. Kind communication, kind conduct, kind commerce, which is natural. When you meditate, you cannot help but be kind. In fact, your amount of kindness you experience is a litmus test, if you will, a barometer, if you will, of the effectiveness of your meditation. If you get up for meditation and you are so cranky, people start calling you Little Darth Vader, my friend, we've taken a wrong turn. Next up, the Twilight Zone. So when we meditate in an empowering way, we are more empathetic. We can't help ourselves. Like Han Solo in Star Wars A New Hope, he had money that he owed Jabba the Hutt. He was not planning on staying around to help the rebellion defeat the Death Star. But his empathy overwhelmed him, and he did the right thing despite himself, which is pretty much Han Solo in a nutshell. But let's continue. So, when we practice meditation the right way, mindfulness and meditation in harmony with our inhalation and exhalation, we plug into enlightenment. If I went to the flea market and picked up a bargain basement lamp, and I stopped by the DIY store and picked up a nice energy-saving LED light bulb. Once I plugged it into the wall, assuming I'd paid my electrical bill, it will turn on. It doesn't take lifetimes of meditation. It just takes plugging in. We can plug in when we meditate correctly. Let's continue. Therefore, journey without attainment, bodhisattvas take refuge in prajnaparamita and live without the wall of the mind. Prajnaparamita, wisdom's perfection. What is wisdom's perfection? Noticing as we breathe in, relaxing as we breathe out. Bob's your uncle. Without walls of the mind and this without fears, they see through delusions and finally accomplish nirvana. As we meditate, things come up, sometimes unpleasant things. By noticing them, by ruthlessly and vulnerably noticing and relaxing, it is as if those walls of the mind pass through us. Which, of course, as a sci-fi geek, reminds me of Frank Herbert's Canticle Against Fear. I must not fear. Fear is a little death that brings obliteration. I will face my fears. I will allow my fears to pass through me and over me and around me. I will turn to see my fears have gone, and only I remain. Clearly, the verbiage is not 1,000% Buddhist, but the idea is very cool. As we plant our tajas upon our zafu, as we sit with our legs resting comfortably upon a folded meditation blanket, things come up. Sometimes external, sometimes internal, sometimes physical, sometimes mental, sometimes pleasurable, sometimes painful, sometimes interesting, sometimes boring, sometimes glorious, and other times grotesque, like something from the fever dreams of Edgar Allan Poe. But if we persist in noticing and relaxing in harmony with our posture and our breathing, we transcend it, which is wild. All Buddhas, past, present, and future, also take refuge in Parashnaparamita and realize unexcelled perfect enlightenment. You should therefore know the great mantra of Parashnaparamita, the mantra of great magic, the unexcelled mantra. The author of this text is not without a sense of humor. This text is full of figures of speech, and this is no different. We're saying here that Prajnaparamita, practicing mindfulness and release and harmony with our breathing, is the perfection of wisdom. It is so powerful that it's even more powerful than a supercalifragilistic mantra, the bestest mantra, the inline skate mantra of sustainable electricity mantra, even better than that. And so this is just saying that. Let's continue now. The mantra equal to the unequal, which is all suffering and is true, not false. The mantra in Prajnaparamita is spoken thus: Gate gate para gate para samgate bodhiswaha. May we practice this mindfulness and meditation so effectively that we completely and perfectly go to enlightenment, which is not tough to do if enlightenment is as close as your next exhalation. I see no additional questions, so I shall drink more water. So we're going to meditate after two easy peasy preliminary exercises. The first one is a comfortable diaphragmatic breathing. As I said, I have the very good fortune to have a shit ton of disabilities. How is that good fortune? Because it forces me to figure out hacks to stay awake during meditation. I've figured out hacks, so you won't have to. And over the decades, I've found that diaphragmatic breathing helps me stay awake without becoming nutty. Now, old-timey boxers referred to the diaphragm area as the breadbasket. Of course, you and I can think of the diaphragm as that muscular membrane, kind of like the head of a drum, that forms at the base of our rib cage. When it flexes, it pulls out and causes our lungs to fill with air. When it relaxes, our intercostal muscles kick in. They squeeze our rib cage like a sponge, and out goes the air. Or pop goes the weasel, one of the two. So, I've said all that to say this. We can think of our breadbasket as the tissues between our navel and our sternum. So when we breathe in, we can silently and mentally recite bread. And as we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite relaxing. Let's play with this for a handful of breaths. Now it's time for our second preliminary practice. As we breathe in, let us intend to sit so tall it would delight our grandmothers. And now we come to our primary meditation practice. As we inhale, we can mindfully watch the play of mind as silently and mentally we recite, watch. As we exhale, we can meditatively relax into mind's non-graspable nature as silently and mentally we recite, relaxing. Come, let us play with this exercise like a kid with a new toy on Christmas morn, or Hanukkah Eve, whichever you prefer. Remember, we are not the director of the play. It's not our job to control what we perceive. It is our job to notice and relax, making peace with what we perceive. Why do we play with these words? Are we forcing our mind to notice? No. Our mind's going to notice anyway. We are, aligning the intention of our brain with the factory installed programming of our autonomic nervous system. Welcome to the live stream. When you have a question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them, simply type your question in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. So we're just, in the second exercise, we're just replacing the word feel, the word watch with the word feel. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. For those of you who've just tuned in, as we breathe in, we give ourselves permission to mindfully feel the play of mind. As silently and mentally we recite feel. And as we exhale, we meditatively relax into feelings' non-graspable nature. As silently and mentally we recite relaxing. And of course, during each in-breath, we try to sit nice and tall and breathe from our diaphragm. Ethan, you are utterly welcome, my friend. May everyone be free from stress, may everyone be happy, may no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. If you feel I have earned it, type something in the chat window, give this live stream a thumbs up, and share it on social media. In approximately 10 3/4 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early morning meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy, and if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.